Hey there, Trojans. How's it going? This is Mr. Weichster back again. Hey, just wanted to throw out kind of some review of some of the notes and stuff, kind of where we left off. All right. Okay. So it's been a couple weeks and stuff. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of flip through these notes again real quick. So the week before we left and stuff, we were talking about this, the economic fight between the North and the South. Um, and one of the things we talked about was tariffs. Okay. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods. Remember, this tariffs and stuff, okay, are their goal is to make you buy American goods. It hurts now. It has some kind of effects and stuff. Okay, it hurts trade relationships with other nations. Prices are a lot of times it kind of adds prices and stuff. Okay, prices go higher for a lot of goods, and as you can kind of see on this page here and stuff, you can kind of see that tariffs. Today we use tariffs and stuff. We try to not use them and stuff. We like kind of free trade, but at the same time and stuff, okay, this, when all of a sudden your industries are hurting and stuff, it definitely allows you to kind of hopefully buy more American goods here. But anyway, but tariffs became a big deal and stuff, okay, between the North and the South during the Civil War. South hated tariffs, didn't like tariffs and stuff. It hurt a lot of their trade, um, made their manufactured goods a lot of times more expensive. Remember, their big export and stuff was cotton, and they were kind of focused their economy all on cotton. And what it does and stuff is it makes other countries and stuff like England and stuff not buy their cotton because they're not buying their cloth because they're buying American cloth instead of like British cloth, for example. Um, the North, the North view and stuff, okay, they love tariffs. Tariffs help their industry. People are buying American made goods there, even though it was at a higher price and stuff. And so really this became kind of a fight again over this here, okay, this difference between free labor and slave labor. All right, so that was kind of the economics here. Well, one more slide here on this. And a lot of this economics then kind of really focused on the West. What was going to happen? The West was kind of the future of America. Would the West have competitive labor where every man is equal, or would you have kind of a slave system and stuff that kind of benefited the wealthier? And so there definitely became kind of a political issue as well as far as the West. All right, and then these next set of notes and stuff. This is kind of on page 5 and 6 in your green packet, and this is hopefully kind of also a review where some of the political triggers of the Civil War here. Yes, let's get to that. Political triggers of the Civil War was all about power, okay, about power in Congress. There was this, for a long time and stuff, people wanted to kind of keep this equal balance of power. Remember, you have 2 senators for every state. And so if you have an equal number of states, then you have an equal number of people in the Senate. And if you have equal number of people in the Senate, then no one section of the country and stuff has more power than another section here. So a lot of times when you think about politics and stuff, it's all about power. All right. So several things and stuff happened to kind of really get the Americans and stuff kind of fighting. And a lot of times, remember, again, this fight is over the West. It's also over the future of the economy, but it's also about power. All right, and power in Congress here. So the Missouri Compromise was one of those things. In 1819, Missouri wanted to become a state. Problem is, it wanted to become a slave state. If it became a slave state, they would have an advantage in Congress and thus in the Senate. All right, and so the goal was to keep this equal balance of power. This became a big fight. Congressmen were about to kill each other. Arguments, fights, literal fights in Congress and stuff over this, until finally they came up with a compromise. It was called the Missouri Compromise, where they allowed another free state. Okay, it's actually split Massachusetts. Actually, all of Maine used to be Massachusetts, even though it was kind of split by and kind of separated by New Hampshire. But they took that part of Massachusetts, created a brand new state of Maine, and then thus it kept an equal balance of power. And then one of the big things it did too is it drew this line. Okay, you can kind of see it in this map here. Drew this line across the country, and then in the future, everything north would be of that line would be free states. Everything south of that line would be slave. Now, at the time they did this, also though, you got to remember all this territory belonged to Mexico, and the southern territory down here. So, in many ways, this compromise said basically the future of America, likely there was going to be more free states than slave states. Okay, so the Missouri Compromise. The goal was to keep this balance of power through this line for the future of um, America here. All right, and then this worked for a while here. Between 1621 and 1648, 6 states joined the Union. 3 states were free, 3 states were slave. But then, big problem. 1850, California requested to become a free state, and this would upset this balance of power. There wasn't another slave state and stuff ready to come in. And so Southerners began to discuss secession. That they were so mad that California wanted to be a free state. And part of the problem was too that California, remember, half of California was below that line, 36 degrees 30 minutes, and so should have been kind of a maybe half free, half slave. Um, Again, eventually they came up with a compromise called the Compromise of 1850. Again, the compromise did probably more to kind of put off the issue and anger people and stuff than it did actually to make things better and stuff here. So the Compromise of 1850 eventually did elect California in as a free state. And there was the North also got Washington, D.C. Outlawed finally slavery here. But what the southern states got was this, the new fugitive slave law. Now they also got there was some money and stuff for Texas, and Texas became a little bit smaller. But so the big thing was this, okay, the North really got California became as a free state. Now they have political power in the Senate. They already had political power in the House of Representatives because there was a bigger population in the North. And so southern slave states and stuff, okay, definitely became kind of very fearful. But one of the things that they did like was this, the new fugitive slave law, which, as this picture shows, basically forced Northerners to help out and participate in slavery. Yeah, for abolitionists, this was horrifying, horrifying new law here. All right. The other thing the Compromise of 1850 said is this: said in the future we're not going to draw that line anymore. We're going to let the whole West be decided by the people who move there, okay, by voting. It was called popular sovereignty. So that's what they're going to do, and that's what this map shows. Compromise of 1850. All this new territory then would going to be open for potential slavery then. Okay, the first example of this was what was called the KansasNebraska Act. There's this new idea for slavery's future here. Allow the people to vote on it, allow the people to decide. All right, and this was the last part of your notes on page 6. It allowed popular sovereignty in Kansas. The people decided could vote on it, game. But what ended up happening is this became kind of a fight over Kansas. Slave states wanted Kansas. If Kansas became a slave state, then it would kind of bring balance and stuff back to Congress again. If the free states got it, they would have a 2-state advantage here. And I think this is the last thing we saw on Friday and stuff was this, before we left and stuff, was this fight in Kansas called Bleeding Kansas. And definitely a lot of people died. I think over 200 people died in what was called Bleeding Kansas. And this guy right here, John Brown, who we're going to talk about this week, was there as well. He was a major abolitionist who wanted to stop slavery, and so he specifically moved to Kansas so he could take place in this vote. Remember that vote on voting election day and stuff there. Missourians kind of crossed the border and illegally voted in Kansas, skewing the vote, and that's when this kind of war broke out. And John Brown participated in it. One of his sons died in Kansas, and he participated in the violence as well. And if you remember from the video, I think that we saw that or on that last Friday, he and his sons went and found some pro-slavery people and hacked them to death with broadswords in Kansas here. Eventually, John Brown, after this kind of settled down a little bit, went back east, brought around did kind of a big fundraising thing for the abolitionists, and bring around a knife and stuff, okay, to try to show people and stuff that he was going to end slavery. and then came up with a new idea to end slavery when he went back east. And that's what our homework is actually going to be about this week. Okay, so John Brown returns from Kansas and comes up with his own kind of idea to end slavery here. All right, and that's what we're going to be talking about this week. So that's kind of a quick review of all the notes again. And I'll get you kind of page 7 and 8 later in the week here. Thanks.